Did Columbus commit atrocities? Of course. But people back then were generally atrocious. Everybody who could afford one had a slave, including people of color. The way people talk about slavery these days, you'd think it was a uniquely American thing that we invented in 1619. But slavery throughout history has been the rule, not the exception. The Sumerians, the Egyptians, the Greeks, Romans, the Arabs, British, the early Americans, all the way up through R. Kelly. The Holy Bible is practically an owner's manual for slaveholders. The word slave comes from Slav, because so many Slavic people were enslaved, and they're as white as the Hallmark Channel. Who do you think gathered the slaves from the interior of Africa to sell to slave traders? Africans, who also kept their own slaves. We're a species prone to making others of our species our bitch. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Humans are not good people.
I think that people should be held accountable for what they did. And this whole thing about Christopher Columbus and what he did and what he did not do, it's not really gonna change anything in my opinion, because it's not like he is ever gonna stand trial for what he did. He is dead and gone. So no matter how we keep on justifying or not justifying his actions and decisions, it's not gonna change anything. But it's gonna help us understand each other more better, learn from it, and then shape a good future to make sure that things like that doesn't happen. To make sure that some of the things happening now that we might not be paying too much attention to, we should. Because those things we are currently doing that we are not paying too much attention to might be a big problem in the future. That is what we need to learn. And for Bimor to make a statement as slavery being the norm, like anyone who could afford one got one. Really? So what he is trying to say is that there were no people who thought that slavery was bad. That there was no single person who was successful, who was rich, who was powerful, but who thought that buying and selling of human beings was a terrible, terrible thing. If only those who couldn't afford didn't get it, it means that anyone or everyone who was successful, who was rich, got tons of slaves. And even if they got it, and even if they have hundreds of slaves, that does not still make it right. It doesn't make it right. Slavery was bad. One more point before I go. In my last video, some of the people in the comment section brought to my attention that I might have been carried away about the transatlantic slave trade without also taking in mind that slavery as a whole wasn't a white-only thing. And that is true, and I appreciate the viewers for doing just that. Like I said before, we all are learning, and the viewers might know something that I do not know. They should feel free to always correct me. I stand corrected with what I say. I stand corrected with everything I do. As humans, we keep on learning. So if the viewer found something in my video that might not be correct, they should point it out to me. I will really appreciate that. So coming back to the white only, so coming back to slave trade being a white only thing, yeah, there were slaves everywhere, and all race took part in slave trade. Africans had slaves. Arabians had slaves. The Europeans had slaves. America had slaves. But the thing that made the transatlantic slavery so different is that it was done in a very massive scale. People were being bought and sold in huge numbers, and that was why the transatlantic slave trade becomes like all over the place. But that does not mean that there weren't slave trading being practiced in other places around the world. So to you guys out there, what do you think about B. Ma's remarks on slavery and slave trade? Do you think that people shouldn't blame those people who were so involved in slave trade, all for the sake that they didn't know better? Do you think that people who did terrible things in the past should be given a green pass because they didn't know better? And if that were to be the case, wouldn't us be giving Hitler a green pass for him not being aware or not knowing better? I'm just saying, I'm not saying we should do, because everyone universally have accepted that Hitler was a terrible dude. I'm just saying that if we are going under this notion that people of the past who did terrible things did not know better, shouldn't we also be thinking about people like him, Adolf Hitler, and people like Mussolini of Italy, and Stanley of Russia, and Mao Zedong of China? Should they all get a green pass for what they did? Let us know in the comment section below, because like always, we love hearing what you have to say. Thank you very much for watching this video, and like always, see you in the next one. Cut.
No, let me tell you, there's no religion in Nigeria that is not suffering. There's nobody that buys bread cheaper. Everybody's going through the same problem.